Good afternoon. My name is Nicolo Andreula, and I'm a principal at AlphaBeta. AlphaBeta is a consultancy company based in Singapore and Sydney, and one of our vision is actually to identify the forces that are shaping global societies and develop practical plans to improve prosperity in societies. The title of today's presentation is The Screen Evolution, and on how video on demand boosts Asian economies. We've actually just published a paper, an independent paper commissioned by Netflix that you may be able to read and grab it later on at the entrance. So we've been talking a lot about how video on demand is actually entering as a disruption in our lives and in business society. And actually, this is what we call the screen evolution. Of course. Thank you. So as you can see, Asia is poised for strong growth in the next 5 years. And the amount of subscriber is actually expected to double from 2016 to 2021 to 360 millions. Now, just so everybody is on the same page, we talk about subscribers because we're talking about video on demand with curated content. So we're talking about content which is protected by copyright and not the user-generated content which is on YouTube. So this is the focus of the presentation. Now, what's happening is that you have in Asia, Amazon Prime, Netflix, and other independent VOD platforms entering. But you can also see a number of local players, for example, Duni in Thailand, Hotstar in India, Ook in Singapore, iFlix in Malaysia, etc., that are starting to emerge. First, in their own market, and then afterwards, they are expanding in the region. So it's a very exciting times for video on demand. Now, Hollywood actors and directors are looking at it. Investors are looking at it. And also regulators are looking at it. So before you want to have a discussion on how to regulate it and on how to look at it, there are some 4 key questions where we felt that was a research gap. And the 4 key questions are the following. What is the real value of VOD services for consumers? What is driving this value? What is the effect of legal content availability on piracy? There is a lot of buzz around, yes, there's a lot of content available online. Is this good or bad for the society? Will this lead to higher or lower illegal consumption, etc.? And we aim at answering this. And finally, what are the implications for policymakers? Now, we basically performed a survey of over 450 VOD subscribers in India and similar ones in other countries. This is a novel approach because we can have statistically significant results about how VOD is consumed and valued in the emerging Asian markets. Now, before we delve into numbers, as an economist, let me make sure that everybody is on the same page. If I can have the next slide, please. Yes, so just a little bit of a recap from your Econ 101 course. So in order to estimate the value of a tech product, we don't want to limit ourselves to the price that people pay for it. Otherwise, some products are actually free, but this doesn't mean that they are worthless. It means just that the consumers are enjoying a large part of the benefit. So let's look at this. This is the pure demand curve, okay? So for any given price, you can see the demand, okay? Now what happens is that if the price is probably 100, only a few people will demand it. And then as the price goes down, of course, the quantity demanded for the products will go down. What happens at a given price point? So at the given price point, which is the equilibrium price there, you will see that the cost is actually what the consumer will pay for it. But there is a large chunk, which is the gray triangle above, which is the consumer surplus. What this means is that when we think about the value of digital products, we do not only have to look at the price and at the revenues of this company, but actually what it means for consumers. Now, traditional economic measures fail to capture this because it's very hard to know what's the real value for the product for a consumer. And that's why we commission a survey where we basically ask existing VOD subscriber what is their willingness to pay, or actually how much are these products worth for them. So the results are actually very exciting for India. What we see is that every VOD subscriber currently values these services at 8,000 rupees per year. This is actually over 1% of the average household income per year. Of course, you may argue that this is a wealthier set of the population, but still, it's over $110 per capita of the subscriber. Now, the interesting question is, yes, there's a lot of value that consumers are grasping, but why is that? And there are three key drivers. A, quality of the experience. B, safety and control. And affordability. In the beginning, people used to think that it was just a cheaper way to consume films and series. But actually, what consumers like the most is quality of the experience and control over content watched. In fact, these are the key factors. You can see that affordability actually comes last. Yes, price is important, but it's not the most important thing. The thing is, the consumer paradigm of consumption is shifting towards from push in the linear TV model to pull. It's the consumer that chooses when and where to watch it. Flexibility and portability, and has control over the content watched. This is very important as a policy implication because it actually let us understand that now is the consumer on the driving seat. If you ask the Netflix guys, when is their peak time for consumption? You could think it's 8 p.m., 9 p.m., right after dinner. No, it's 5 p.m. when everybody's catching the bus, hopefully, to go home from work and opens content on their mobiles. So not only the consumption patterns are changing, but also the attributes of the media are changing. Now, of course, people think it's good value for money, especially in India, and even compared to cable TV services, over 75% of people agreed that actually VOD services provide good value for money. But the most interesting results are about safety. There are a lot of concerns, or actually there's a lot of debate about whether is it safe for children or the so-called vulnerable audiences to have access to VOD platforms. Now, you know that VOD platforms have independently developed some safety features such as profile creation, safety pin, and Touch ID. So we asked ourselves and our respondents, do you know about these safety features that are there? Do you know that you can actually create your own profile and set up a pin so that your kid does not go and just turn on the TV and select some inappropriate content? Now, in India, it turns out that 4 out of 5 consumer VOD respondents of the survey say that they do know this, and 4 out of 5 actually say that they trust these features. So it's actually stunning, the fact that as consumption patterns are changing and the ways of offering the products are changing from the players on the industry, we see that there's a lot of trust by our respondents in the safety features that are put in place there. And now the big question is around piracy, of course. Now, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence about, yes, illegal consumption of video actually goes down after Amazon or Netflix or any other VOD platform enter in a country. But there's not a clearly established link between VOD consumption availability of legal sources and consumption on illegal websites. This survey, for the first time, establishes this link in Asia and actually shows that Indian respondents, 77% of them, say that content availability on legal sources makes them less likely to use illegal websites. This is actually a revolutionary finding because it basically says that what drives piracy and illegal consumption is lack of legal options available. We're not in the linear TV model anymore where consumers just have to wait for a TV and wait for the movie. When somebody is online, if it cannot find that content available, it'll just switch and open another window, right? It's as easy as this. And that's why it's very important to think about how availability of legal sources affects illegal content consumption. Also to protect the producer of the content that we may have a dialogue with afterwards. Now, what are, and I'm concluding, the implications for this? We need to change our mindset in how we think about regulating video on demand. Because actually the old paradigm doesn't work anymore. You cannot apply 20th century legislation to the 21st century technology. We think that you have to go from censorship, which in the words of Malaysian culture minister is only leading consumers towards illegal sources, to empowering consumers towards multi-stakeholder governance approach to online safety. Think about Netflix initiative in Malaysia or Google initiative in India, where they actually sat down with the government, with UNICEF, in order to empower consumers and show what's good for them and how can they protect themselves and their dear ones from illegal and inappropriate content. Second one, there's an impetus to regulate and to incentivize contribution of international companies. What regulators should be careful about is not to have unintended outcomes that could scare off investors. Previous AlphaBeta research shows that it's about how you tax people, not how much. It's more important for international investors that its fiscal systems are equitable and non-discriminatory, as opposed to think about the level of the tax rate itself. And finally, there is a call for light touch regulation, which does not come from the player of the industry, but from the most successful digital economies. You think about Taiwan, which has explicitly advocated for light touch regulation. You think about Hong Kong, who has technology neutral legislation. And Singapore, which is automatic class licensing, instead of putting in front of VOD platforms a very complicated bureaucratic procedure that, as we saw, may actually lead consumers to just go on pirate website in order to see their content. So these are some of the 3 key things that I wanted you to reflect upon, and I'm more than happy to take your question afterwards. Thank you.